We're back for Your Ears Only. I'm David Alpern.
And I'm Eddie Robinson with this quote from the news. Rupert, is that you? I hear you breathing, Rupert. That was Alec Baldwin in a taped segment for the Emmy Awards on Rupert Murdoch's Fox network, referring to the phone hacking scandal shadowing Murdoch's News Corporation. But Fox cut the crack, and Baldwin pulled the rest of the segment from the awards show, which was dominated by the Modern Family sitcom. Now this.
If you make yourself more than just a man, if you devote yourself to an ideal, then you become something else entirely. A legend, Mr. Wayne. A legend.
If you can't already hear the Batcape fluttering, you're not checking out the new movie trailers online. There are already several for The Dark Knight Rises, third in a series by director Christopher Nolan, and like the entire Batman movie franchise, with Michael Uslan as executive producer. Not surprising, since he bought all film rights to The Caped Crusader when most in Hollywood thought the whole idea was, well, batty. Still, it took a super effort over a dozen years to get the first one done and help make the big screen safe for superheroes.
Uslan, who has Oscars and Emmys from many other projects, tells the story in The Boy Who Loved Batman, a memoir from Chronicle Books. And he's on the line now to talk about it for Your Ears Only. Michael Uslan, welcome to our program.
Thanks very much.
Before you loved Batman, you loved comics generally. Which ones first?
Well, I was the ultimate comic book geek growing up in the 1950s and into the 60s. Back then, we all kind of did the same thing. We tended to start with Harvey Comics, Casper the Friendly Ghost, Richie Rich, who for your younger audience members was really Donald Trump in short pants. We then graduated to Archie, where all my preconceived notions of what dating in high school would be like came from comic books with Jughead and Betty and Veronica. And then Superman. The George Reeves Superman show was on the air. Superman was at the forefront. Once we got beyond Superman, my world became Batman, as I realized I had actually found a superhero with no superpowers, whose greatest superpower was his humanity, someone I could truly identify with, and I just became the boy who loved Batman by age 8.
Talk about how, as a kid, you moved from being a Batman fan to actually participating in the comics industry.
Well, it was a dream that I had. When I was 8, I decided, okay, someday I'm going to write Batman comics. And when I got to graduate high school with 30,000 comic books sitting in my garage dating back to 1936, so that my dad couldn't even get his car in the garage, not one day ever, I knew that that was going to be my destiny. And when I got to Indiana University in Bloomington, they had an experimental curriculum department. If you had an idea for a course that had never been taught before, you could get the backing of a department and teach it on campus. So I designed what would become the world's first accredited college course on comic books. And that was the thing that drew national attention, got me on radio and TV talk shows, and brought me to the attention of Stan Lee at Marvel Comics in New York and the publishers over at DC Comics in New York. And that led to a job at DC, and that led to writing Batman comics by the time I was finishing college.
Even the head of DC Comics, home of Batman, advised you against trying to get him into the movies. Why?
Well, he did. He was very fatherly toward me. This was the man who had mentored me into the comic book business. His name was Saul Harrison. Lovely man. And he was very concerned. And he said, Michael, since Batman went off the air on TV, he's as dead as a dodo. Nobody's interested in Batman anymore. Please, he said, save your money. Don't do this. And he couldn't talk me out of it. I felt that if we showed the world what a dark, serious superhero was like, it would be a whole new kind of movie like no one had ever seen before, with a real chance for success and sequels and animation and the toys and games that could go along with it.
Well, I guess one problem was that the super campy Batman TV series, Pow, Swish, but the Hollywood moguls made other comparisons in arguing against Batman on film, from Annie, the musical, to Sean Connery's Sherwood Forest sequel, Robin and Marion. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was horrible for me, because once I bought the rights to Batman and set out to make the dark and serious movies, every single studio turned me down. Everyone told me I was crazy, that it was the worst idea they ever heard. They said, Michael, you're nuts. You can't do serious comic book films. Michael, you're out of your mind. You can't do dark, gritty superheroes. And for God's sake, nobody's ever made a movie based on some old television series that's never been done. Well, at Columbia Pictures, they shook their head at me and said Batman would never be successful because their movie, Annie, didn't do well. And I was stunned. I said, are you talking about the little redheaded girl who sings Tomorrow? And he said, yeah. I said, well, what does that have to do with Batman? And he replied, oh, come on, Michael. They're both out of the funny pages. And that was my rejection there. From my alma mater at United Artists, they rejected it because of the 1979 movie Robin and Marion. And I'm telling you now, I've thought about it for 25 years. The only reason they could have possibly turned me down was because both concepts, both properties had the word Robin in the title. There was no other nexus.
But wasn't Superman already a hit on the big screen?
Superman was, absolutely. But the thinking in Hollywood back then was from people running it that grew up in an era when comic books were being accused of creating the post-World War II rise in juvenile delinquency. These were people who thought the comics were probably just cheap and lurid entertainment for children, nothing more than that. And they looked down their nose at comic books, the characters, and their creators. And the feeling was that Superman was the one and only comic book character that could transcend comic books and be made into movies. Nobody else had that stature.
Do you have a favorite among all the Bat flicks so far, or is it always the next one?
Of course, the first one was revolutionary. And it was my dream come true. We had two geniuses of Tim Burton and Anton Furst, the production designer, who deserves such credit, won the Oscar that year for designing Gotham City and the Batmobile and the whole look of the picture. And the movies by Christopher Nolan are pure genius.
Michael Uslan is an Oscar and Emmy-winning producer who bought the film rights to make all the Batman movies. His new memoir is The Boy Who Loved Batman from Chronicle Books and TheBoyWhoLovedBatman.com. And this has been For Your Ears Only.